Simon, welcome to Livewire.
Thanks so much for having me.
Are you just ecstatic at the idea of getting older so people will stop talking about how youthful you are and just how funny you are? Because if you're a 50-year-old guy, you're just funny, but if you're 28 as you are, you're, precocious, and it's sort of the obsession of everyone who's older than you.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that I'm so young looking. I guess I shouldn't admit this to a radio audience, but even though I'm 28, I look like I'm between 14 and 15 years old. And I think that's
generous.
And so I think, yeah. And so, I think the bar has always just been a lot lower for me. I mean, when I was in 8th grade, I was doing fractions, and people thought I was the most brilliant kindergartner, they'd ever seen in their life. I was like little man Tate, And now, now I seem like a pretty clever 14-year-old, So I'll take it.
This book of yours, The Last Girlfriend on Earth, I have to say, is so deeply funny to me. I was reading it on the airplane, and I was sitting next to this mom and her daughter, and the daughter was going to visit Lewis and Clark College here in Oregon, and I was laughing so hard that I was convulsing and also crying some.
Did TSA come out?
They zip-tied me by the end of the flight. So. And they were upset that they were talking to each other for most of the flight because they would look over and there was just like a guy crying and reading this book of yours. It's incredibly funny. Congratulations, by the way. It's a real accomplishment.
That's really nice of you, and thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
You also, sure. Round of applause.
This is a really fun show. I really like the show. It's really...
We tape it every other week here at the Alberta Rose Theater, so feel free to come by anytime. Good seats still available. One of the things I've noticed in reading a lot of your writing is that you seem to really love to write in the voice of characters who are really bad at communicating verbally.
Yeah, that's a total act, because really I'm like great at communicating, and I just make the characters that way. Because I'm like good and smart with words and stuff. But when I write the stories, I make the guys bad at the talk stuff.
I'm curious what the longest awkward pause in Livewire history is. Because we have a chance tonight, we have a chance right now to beat that, I think.
And scene.
That's what it must feel like to be in Black Prairie. They're just in the palm of our hand. Anything we do right now is greeted with total approval. So you do write in a character in this book, which I think one of the most sort of perfect stories in this book is the story of a condom that's in a kid's wallet.
Yes, that is a piece called Unprotected. The first piece of the New Yorker, I was told, ever to be written from the perspective of a condom. I could read the very beginning.
Would you?
Yeah, sure. This sort of says it all. I born in factory. They put me in wrapper. They seal me in box. 3 of us in box. In early days, they move us around, from factory to warehouse, from warehouse to truck, from truck to store. One day in store, boy human sees us on shelf. He grabs us, hides us under shirt. He rushes outside. He goes to house, runs into bedroom, locks door. He tears open box and takes me out. He puts me in wallet. I stay in wallet long, long time. That one's pretty autobiographical.
Yeah. That was, by the way, we're talking to Simon Rich. His newest book is called The Last Girlfriend on Earth. This is Livewire Radio. The kid in this story has a different name than yours, but it sounded it felt to me as I read it to be deeply autobiographical for you.
You are a very perceptive literary critic. I don't know how you piece that together. That the socially awkward nerd virgin in the story had parallels to the author's life, but yeah, that is they're all sort of weirdly
Look,
personal.
You want trenchant literary analysis? Go on Book Notes. Okay, this is Livewire. We read half of the book at best. The character that you portray yourself as, for instance, you wrote a Shouts and Murmurs piece, really it was sort of 4 pieces, called A Sellout or Selling Out.
Sellout, yeah.
And it is a really fascinating way to take on your modern life, which is this idea that if your great-grandfather had somehow been sort of frozen in time, and then actually what happens is he's trapped in a pickling barrel, I believe, in Brooklyn.
Yeah. That story is told from the perspective of my actual real great-great-grandfather, Herschel Rich. He comes out of abject poverty from the old country, and he comes to Brooklyn with 5 pennies in his pocket and works day and night to try to make a better life for himself and hopefully his ancestors. And in the story on page 2, he gets stuck in a pickle jar for 100 years.
Pickled barrel. He's not like
he's not
microscopic.
He's not miniaturized. Sorry, yeah. It's been a while since I wrote it, so I forgot my pickle terminology.
I don't want people to think the story's unrealistic.
No, it's a lot of research went into it, and then he goes and he meets. He's been preserved, so he's embrined. So he's 27, and he meets his great-great-grandfather, who's this guy Simon Rich, and he does not like him.
See, I think he likes him. He just doesn't understand him because Simon Rich is such a titanic douche.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
the fictional Simon Rich.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Is this the time when it's fiction?
I don't know. I mean,
because you're writing about this character Simon Rich, who's a screenwriter, which you are. You work for Pixar, who has these sort of imagined problems that, compared to the guy who'd been in the pickle barrel for 100 years, are non-problems.
Right. Exactly. Well, the first thing he's upset about, I tell him that he asks me what I do, and I say, well, I'm a script doctor, and he says, I'm so. He starts to cry. He's so moved that his ancestor would have the education to become a medical doctor. And I tell him, no, I'm writing jokes for a movie called Ice Chimps, which is about monkeys who learn how to ice skate, and he's less enthused.
But do you, to any degree, actually perceive your life as a writer and as a creator of things that are funny as being as worthless as you make the Simon Rich character in that?
I think so, yeah. I think it's pretty worthless. I mean, I really love to do it. I feel incredibly lucky and blessed that I get to do it for a living. I'm thankful for it, but in part because I'm not good at anything else.
Really, though? Because, your brother's a very acclaimed novelist, your dad is a writer, your mother also. You come from this really good stock. It seems that you could probably do just about anything you want.
That's really generous of you. Thank you.
NFL linebacker, take that off the list. But other things, non-NFL related, probably so. I guess my question is, if you do, it's fun to do, but you don't maybe feel like it's the most important thing that goes on in the world? I
think that's right. Yeah, I love to read. I love to write. I feel. When I was a 6-year-old, all I wanted to do was copy Roald Dahl, and I used to literally transcribe his books and then change the by Roald Dahl and make it by Simon Rich and try to pass them off as my own.
I did that with a Dave Barry column for my high school newspaper. I rewrote a Dave Barry column.
I love Dave Barry too.
And turned it in as my own work. Yeah. And couldn't believe that the mid-40s Caucasian English teacher had also read Dave Barry. I was like, how did he figure this out?
Exactly. Yeah, so I, you know, if I could tell my 6-year-old self that, you know, over 20 years later, I could still basically plagiarize Roald Dahl, you know, and be able to do it full time, he'd be psyched.
That Shouts and Murmurs piece you wrote about Jimmy and the giant tangerine seemed fairly derivative.
Yeah. Yeah. Joe and the Popcorn Factory, too.
Yeah. So you were, for a time, in your, I think it was your early teens, a writer for Saturday Night Live?
Yeah, 4 years, 2007 to 11.
What is the thing that you wrote to get them to hire you on?
It was my first book, which was called Ant Farm. And it was this collection of weird short pieces. A lot of them had been in magazines. And I had never written for actors before. And they took a chance on me based on this weird book. And it was really fun. But I had a huge learning curve because I didn't know how to show stories visually. So I had a lot of scenes that year that started off with people being like, here we are at the dog track, you know. So it was a pretty steep learning curve for me that first year. There was a lot of sketches that year of just people talking to each other in rooms. I didn't realize you could cut to things.
Now, the word about Saturday Night Live is that it can be a notoriously cutthroat place for the writers and actors trying to get their work up on the show. You don't seem like a cutthroat guy.
It's not so cutthroat, is the truth. I mean, people are really nice. People taught me a lot. I mean, I think it was easier for me because I was so visibly terrified.
Well, they thought a baby had come to write on their show, and so they were trying to treat it gently because they have a soft spot.
Exactly. So I think they went a little easier on me.
Did you have a lot of things that you wrote that you thought, oh man, this is great, and then it didn't get on and you kind of couldn't understand why?
Oh, yeah. It ultimately, most of those instances, the reason turned out to be the quality of the writing. In hindsight, I remember my first week at the show. The very first sketch I turned in, LeBron James, back then a Cleveland Cavaliers star, was the host, and so I wrote a sketch for Bill Hader and Amy Poehler, and the premise was that they were a married couple and they had a memory foam mattress, and Bill was really upset because when he went to work, the indentation of his body in the mattress was perfect, but when he came home from work, there was always a LeBron James-shaped indentation on his side of the mattress, and it went to dress, and
Dress meaning dress rehearsal.
Sorry, yeah,
it's almost on getting onto the real show.
Almost, but it didn't quite make it, and afterwards, Seth Meyers, the head writer, was really nice, and he said, the next time we have a host who's 6'8", 340 pounds, we'll try it again.
Why did they shoot that idea down, do you think?
I think, I mean, you know...
I wonder if it had to do with race. I mean that quite seriously. Like, I wonder, is that the kind of thing they think about? In other words, like, we're trying to make a joke here, but it could come off as seeming like this guy's threatened because LeBron James is African-American as opposed to just being an enormous guy or very famous or popular. Does that, like, subtext play into it, or are they just strictly going off of, is it funny?
That's a good question. That's really interesting. I mean, I don't think in that particular instance it had anything to do with it. Because you can read when the audience is chilled by something. You can tell pretty quick when an audience is offended.
They call that a live wire crowd.
They make a sound like, and so you know, like, oh, whoops, we crossed a line somewhere. But I don't know. You know, I always had the experience at SNL of the thing you think is so edgy comes across as totally tame and boring and almost cliched. And then, like, the sketch you write about, like, shopping carts, you get like 1,000 letters from, like, the Shopping Cart Institute of America telling you that you ruined their lives. So you really never knew, like, where the hate mail was going to come from. It was always surprising. It always came in. It was just surprising who it was from.
Came from,
the
sure.
return addresses, yeah.
You wrote a sketch that I thought was really a brilliant, which was a game show where it's called What's Their Name?
Yeah, what's that name? Yeah.
And it starts off very kind of simple, like the contestants, it's a man and a woman. The man's Paul Rudd, and the woman is an actress from SNL.
Vanessa Bayer. Yeah.
And they're just identifying kind of famous people, and then the twist happens, which is
it's like their doorman, or like for the guy, it's like his 7 interns who like have worked for him for a summer, and they do not know their names.
they're offering like $10,000, and it's like it's the African American doorman in the guy's building who he sees every day for years of his life.
Yeah, who like knows his children by name, and Rudd just strikes out. Yeah, that was like I'm sort of surprised that one went all the way, because it led to a lot of uncomfortable silences. Not one of the most successful reoccurring sketches in SNL history. But yeah, it's incredible when you write 50 sketches a week as a staff, and about 7 make it. And so you have to write each one thinking this is going to make it. You have to work that hard on each one. And when it goes out there, it's pretty miraculous, because people put so much work into it. The crew and the sets and costumes, and they bring this thing to life, and I just feel really lucky that I got to see some of that happen.
Do you guys get mad as the writers when the actors start cracking up in the sketch that you've slaved over?
I mean, for me, yes, is the answer for me. But the truth is, I'm such a bad actor that anyone who can go out there and do it, I'm just like floored, because I would be shaking and just weeping if I had to go out in front of a camera. Here's how bad of an actor I am. I have a couple friends who wrote for 30 Rock, and they decided that they were going to base a character on me, and his name was going to be Simon. And so I get this call, and I'm on the 8th floor, and they say, why don't you come down to the 7th floor to audition for the part of Simon? And I bombed it. I didn't even get a call back.
Oddly, they cast LeBron James.
They cast LeBron James, and he killed it.
Yeah,
he
did.
It.
Really did.
Yeah.
Simon Rich, ladies and gentlemen, his new book is The Last Girlfriend on Earth.